Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Phillip Wylie. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Phillip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hacker Factory podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Wylie, the Hacker Maker. In each episode, I have a guest sharing their unique story of how they got into cybersecurity. And along with that story, they share knowledge of how they got started, and hopefully it can help you on your journey or help progress in your journey. And I'm very happy to introduce Jennifer Bate today. Jennifer and I met a few years ago through a mutual friend, and we've kind of been following her career over the years, and it's really great the way she's doing, and she's really excelled and has had a very successful career. So I'm very sure that this is going to help you in your career and help motivate you. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate you having me on. I'm so excited. I think it's really great. What you're doing, you're just talking about, I feel like you're giving a voice to people whose voices might not normally be heard, and I'm excited to share. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to sharing your story, and yeah, those voices need to be heard, because there's too many cases that people are in really bad situations and they hear other people's stories, and it helps them overcome and encourage them. So since some of our listeners may not know of you, why don't you introduce yourself and share about you and your life and your career?
So what I'm doing now, my name's Jen Bate. Nice to meet everybody. I'm a consultant. I work in offensive security. I work at a big consulting firm, and I have been in the industry for a couple of years. I do web application pen testing, and I also have done network pen testing, a little bit of everything. Some network configuration reviews, and it's a second career for me. So when people ask me, how did you get into cybersecurity? I say, well, I took the long way. I took the long way. It reminds me, Phil, like you're in Texas, like they say, people in Texas say, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could. I say, like, I wasn't born in cybersecurity, but I got here as soon as I could.
That's funny. So yeah, can you kind of share how you got started? Before your cybersecurity career and kind of how you got into cybersecurity?
Yeah, I'm going to go back a little bit. I feel like I don't know how you feel. I know you come from kind of a different background too. And sometimes I think, wow, if any one of these things had not happened, I would not be here. And it's just interesting how life unfolds. Again, like I said, it's a second career for me, third if you count being a mom. My first career, I have an electrical engineering degree from the University of Michigan, and my mom was a calculus teacher and my dad was an engineer, so what else are you going to do with me? And math runs pretty heavy in my family, so it was just very normal to choose engineering, and my brother was one, and we have General Motors and Ford and things like that in Detroit, so I chose electrical engineering because it had the most math. So I was finishing up Michigan, pretty tough school, very highly ranked, if you believe in that kind of thing. So lots of job offers. I was finishing graduation. It had been a tough program. I was usually the only woman, one or the only two women in the program. And I was too young to really understand how distracting that was to be the only person in the room that we talk about now, and just having things be kind of distracting by that. But yeah, I had job offers. I was really uninspired. I remember I got 4 or 5 job offers, and I was looking at grad school for biomedical engineering, and I was not that inspired. I remember thinking, this is what I've been working for, to sit at lunch and drink Perrier and look down Michigan Avenue and have this job, and in 50 years I'm going to be dead. It just doesn't seem like this has been what I've been working for. And about that time, a guy in one of my classes said, "Hey, the Air Force is looking for engineers to work in their hospitals, and but you'd have to join the Air Force." And I like, well, what does that mean? And like, I knew at the airport, he's like, you have to get your commission and all that. So looking for a venture. I got my commission in the Air Force, and I declined all those jobs. They hadn't, Air Force hadn't paid for college or anything. I don't come from a military family. It was just looking for adventure. And I declined all the other opportunities and broke up with the boyfriend. And the next thing I know, driving down to Texas, a place I'd never been before. And it really was like that old movie where the gal's like, is green the only color these come in? Like that old Goldie Hawn movie. I didn't really know anything about anything, but yeah, it was a really fun thing. I was in the military for about 6 years. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the people. It really runs in a lot of families. So you just kind of join this big family, and got to do some interesting things and have some adventures. And you get to be a part of the infrastructure of the country. So it's just a neat thing. And I met my husband, married an Air Force hunk, and he was a military officer too. So we got married, and we were like, it was just really hard to be like stationed together. And it became sort of like do we really want to do this thing? Do we want to move this often? And we both decided, yeah, we probably don't. So we both left the military about the same time, and hire a veteran, because they quit their jobs. I mean, you quit your job and you really don't usually have anything lined up, because it's going to be a transition. So my husband, software engineer, he found the first job in San Diego, so we moved here. And I'm like, well, they have hospitals in San Diego, it's going to be no problem. But my career transition didn't go as well. I kind of struggled to find like the civilian version of my career. They were sort of looking for a different skill set. It just didn't go well. It didn't go well. I found something. I worked for a couple of years. It was a long way from home. It was just not a great fit. And I remember thinking I need a different career, but I don't know what. So that risky like Air Force thing kind of was coming due. Anyway, so we started our family, and it was just sort of easy. It was difficult, but it was an easy decision to go. Yeah, we had 3 kids, 3 boys in 5 years. On purpose. And it was like, look, this is not a good fit. I'm just going to be the full-time parent for a while. And but yeah, so the break is a break, right? It's I chose my choice. A break is a break, but mine turned into a little bit longer, probably than most people's. And when my middle son was 5, we're like, something's different, we think. And so he was diagnosed with Asperger's about that time. So, and he's in the middle. And so we began to be like navigating the whole school district thing, and just trying to advocate for him and be on his team and advocate for him until he was old enough to advocate for himself. And I did, and he does. So but that took time. That took time and energy. And at year 5, I remember thinking, it's been about like 5 years or so he was diagnosed. And I remember thinking, well, Michigan told me my half-life of my electrical engineering degree was 5 years. So I guess half-life is 5. And by year 10, I thought, well, I guess I'm done. I didn't really want to be done, and I didn't really have time to think about it, but I thought, I'm done, I guess. And by year 15, if I had time to think about it, it was just like, that was that person. That was that other person. That was the person maybe that I knew once, that I used to know. And that is just where I was when you're a parent. I know you have a daughter, Phil, and it's like, it's the only kind of job that if you do a good job, you work yourself out of a job. Like, it's your job my job was winding up. My kids were middle school on up. People were doing okay. My son was in a charter school he liked. But I was just that other person that I had been. I didn't really think about it. And, But really, like I said, I wanted to prepare him for the world. And what I've often felt like now, I feel like maybe my next responsibility might be to help, if they'll let me, prepare the world for them. And I don't know that you've ever had anybody on your show, or might consider having anybody on your show that identifies as being on the spectrum, that works in offensive security. If that would be, I just think that would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. Something definitely keep in mind.
So middle school on up, I'm standing in the middle school library, and my friend goes, hey, what are you going to do next? I go, yeah, I don't know. Like, she goes, maybe you want to be a teacher. I go, maybe I could teach calculus and not want to like run screaming from the room. And she goes, maybe you want to be an educational advocate because you've been advocating for your son. I go, yeah, I don't really think so. I used to be an engineer. I'd really just love to get back into that, but no one's going to hire me now. I know a lot of engineers that have left the field to be parents or whatever, and they can't get back in. They told me. So just then the librarian said, the network is so slow today. The LAN was just here. And I said, what? And LAN in this case is a person. And I said, well, what do they do? And she told me, and I went home and I cracked open my laptop and I registered for the A+ class at my local community college online because I didn't have the courage to go into class. There was no way I was going to set foot in a class. There was no way. I can't explain why. I don't seem like why would I be that way, but 15 years, there was no way. And I told my husband, that's going to be my job. I'm going to get my A+ certification and I'm going to go work for the school district. I'll repair their laptops and that'll be my job. And my husband, who's the biggest, he's the captain of my cheerleading squad, said, you're thinking too small. And you're so smart. You're so much smarter than me. Like, you're thinking too small. And I'm like, shut up. What do you know? He was right. Just that once, one time was he right. But I took the A+ class. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And the end of the A+ class is a little bit of networking. And when I saw networking, I thought, okay, now I remember this, the binary math. It's just hammered into us as electrical engineers, binary math and Boolean math and all that. So I said, what's that? And they go, well, you should take the Network Plus class because that you can make more money if you have the Net Plus over the A+. I'm like, all right, so sign me up for that Net Plus. And so Net Plus is when I got my mojo back. I remembered I was smart. I'm acing everything because I have an electrical engineering degree. I mean, it wasn't difficult for me to learn. And the guys, I think I aced the closed book final. And the guy said, what'd you say your background was again? And I told him, and I go, yeah, but I'm just going to go do this thing. He goes, well, do you like networking? You should take the Cisco classes because we have a series of 4 classes. It's hands-on routers and switches. I go, all right. He goes, because you can make more money if you get your Cisco certification. I go, well, great. When do those start? He said September. And I said, well, okay, it's March and my kids are in school. I'm teaching people how to drive. I'm doing all that thing. So I'm like, well, what do we got in March? And they're like, wireless or security? And so I said, well, I'm not working in security, but I don't even know why I said that. I didn't know anything about security. I'll take the security class as a filler. I'll just take it while I'm waiting for the Cisco classes to start in September. So the first day of Security Plus class, it's the maps of Security Plus. The guy goes, yeah, this is kind of a dry class, but we're going to do a CTF. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, well, it's this, and this. And I'm like, well, I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not supposed to be here, and I don't know what's going on. And he's like, don't worry, you're perfect. You're perfect for a key CTF and just go ahead and, that it's accelerated learning. So yeah, long story short, I fell just straight down the rabbit hole. I almost canceled the Cisco classes. I didn't, but I fell down the rabbit hole and I felt like I was made out of lead and I've been falling ever since.
Very cool. That's awesome the way, things kind of happen in life that at the time it seems like an inconvenience, but then you actually find your passion. So that's pretty awesome that's how you kind of discovered some of the offensive security stuff and security through that class. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know where I would be without the community college. I think the great word about community college is community, because you get to meet people in your local area and you get to be in community. And somebody in the class started a security club. So that's something nice where people can put on their resume if they don't have anything. So I was at the security club and we were doing CTFs together and we were learning a bunch, but we all were terrible at web. We were terrible at web. Nobody could. We were doing National Cyber League. We were doing horrible. And we kept saying, like, does someone know anything? Because we would teach each other. Like, if I was good at networking, I could teach somebody Wireshark. But nobody knew web. And so we kept saying, we just feel like we need like a little OJT. We need like an in-service. We need somebody just come and give us like a quick lesson because the professor said he didn't know enough about web to teach us. And there was a gal in the security club who said, hey, I know a guy. And she goes, yeah, I know a guy. His name is Derek Rook. He teaches, I think, for this company. I don't really know. And he works at Teradata in the red team. And he might be willing to come and talk to our security club and like give us a class. And so this SANS instructor, local, came, we bought him some beer and we put him on a stage at a pub and he threw up his laptop and shared his screen and tossed a bunch of stuff that probably mostly went over my head. I was having to Wireshark at that point. Web was not anywhere on my radar. And Burp Suite, it just fries your brain if you've never like seen it before or whatever. And I remember Derek's really good. He taught us a bunch. I think the main thing I remember is that someone said, "Hey, you work for this company. It's really expensive. It's really expensive classes, and they're really good, but they're really expensive." And he goes, "Well, we do scholarships for women," and it was largely women in this club, weirdly. And so I went home and I Googled, SANDS scholarship or whatever. And I found the SANS Women's Immersion Academy scholarship. And I'm like, well, I, at that point, had my Net Plus and my Security Plus. So but I hadn't worked yet. I'm still like, I'm just going to take one more class. And then I'm going to go repair computers, because probably they won't hire me in security yet. I've been told. So so I applied for that, and all the women, and I ended up getting the scholarship. It's very competitive. I don't know how many thousands of people they have apply. I think it helped I was a veteran, but all the Women's Immersion Academy grads, when we talk, we're like, yeah, life-changing. It's, and I want people to understand what those scholarships mean to people like us, because other than the birth of my kids and the day I got married, I mean, that I could tell you where I was standing when I found out I got that scholarship. And I know their classes are expensive, but what I tell people is like a percentage of that goes to people like me, and they trained me because the industry would not. And so I put that different ways depending on how salty I am. But I was standing in the frozen food aisle at Stater Brothers in Cover Mountain, and I just about lost my mind. And I went to check out, and the guy's like, "How are you today?" And I just about like kissed him on the mouth. I was so happy. It's just such a life-changing thing. So we get 3 GX certifications in 6 months, and we get mentoring, and we get help with our resumes, and it's just a really great, and mostly they just have to keep telling us that we can do it, because it's mostly people like me who just like walked in off the street, and the requirement is that we don't already be working in the industry. So it really does help pull people in. So did you want to say anything?
Yeah, that was awesome that you got that, because I remember you talking about that. I'm trying to remember if you mentioned that you were applying for it or how I found out about that, but that's an awesome opportunity for anyone that gets to do that. That's, some of the best training you can get from people that are industry experts. I mean, not to knock colleges and stuff, but, sometimes you go to a college and it's someone that's academic and they may not have real world experience. You got people here that are, have worked in consulting. You've got people at SANS that have created different types of exploits, like Tim Medine with curb roasting and that sort of thing. So that was an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, so really, really life-changing. Exactly. So so we're up to 6 certifications, right? And I know work experience, because SANS said, hey, this is kind of intense. Maybe hold off on job hunting until you're done, because we might maybe have some people wash out if they get a job in the middle. So it's like another 6 months, and I got the burn for pen testing. I think that was when I met you, because I was trying to decide which was my electives, and I was like, well, I would love to be a pen tester, but we'll see how that goes. So so off to the job hunt, right? And SANS helps us with our resume, but so everything was formatted right, everything was spelled right, it looked nice, but I promise you, whoever can hear my voice, I had a worse resume than you. Because anything like that from my old career long ago, it fell off. It fell off the resume. I had volunteering on there. I had my certifications. I had my participation in the CTFs and things like that. But I just kept thinking, you can only put so much lipstick on a pig. And I didn't qualify for internships, because those were all said new college grads. I didn't qualify for veterans transition apprenticeships, because those were for newly transitioning veterans, and I wasn't one. And so I would just look for opportunities, and I just wasn't seeing very much that didn't say those 2 things. But my superpower was that I knew a lot of people, because I raised my kids here. We did a ton of volunteering. My husband and I both have just been involved in our community. So, it was like, look, I joined the community college. So I met people at the security club, and then I go, well, hey, how do I find? And they go, you should go to OWASP, and you should go to ISACA, and you should go to ISA and WESIS and all those other networking groups. Those are all networking groups that meet in your town. And I had friends of mine, friends of my kids. By the time I get done with a list of people that I knew, because I knew the only way that I was going to get interviewed. I knew if I could get the interview, I just figured if I could get the interview, I could probably get the job. I just felt like I probably could. But I didn't think I was going to get the interview, because my resume sucked. And so I didn't say pen testing at first. I just look, I want to do cool stuff with cool people. I want to do cool stuff with cool people, and I don't want to get in the freeway. And this was before COVID. I don't want to get in the freeway because there's so many like good companies right by my house. And so I made a list, and this is what I tell people. I made a list, and I looked for what's called the Holy Grail. So I made a list of companies where I wanted to work, and I went to their career page on their site, and like careers at northropgrumman.com or whatever. And I found some jobs that I would qualify for if I squinted. Like, I'm never going to qualify for any of these because they all had experience next to them, but I just found jobs that I would maybe be qualified for. Like 2 to 3 years experience, especially now, means 0. 5 years of experience means 2. 7 years means like 18 months. Like, go figure that out. I don't know. But so I got a list. I got the rec number, and I found a friend. Like, so if I could find a friend that worked there, or a friend of a friend who worked there, a rec number, and then I would ask them if they knew the hiring manager. And then I would ask them if they had an internal referral, because most of these companies have internal referrals. Like, especially cyber, if they hire a cyber person, they get like $500 or like $1,000. So you're not asking them for something that like is going to really cost them anything, and you've already done the work. Look, here's the rec number. You don't walk up to them and say, "Hey, Northrop Grumman, I heard they hire people in cyber. Do you have anything?" You don't do that. That's asking them to do work for you. You go to their page, you look, I found this rec number. Do you know the hiring manager? And sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. But that way, with that, I could get the interview. I might not get the job, but I would get the interview. I didn't apply blindly online. I was tempted sometimes because there's a lot of that. Like, there's a lot of Indeed messages come through. But I just found that if I didn't do what I just said, I wouldn't get the interview. It's super important, super important. So I would then, so then you hit them with your smarts, because a career changer or career relauncher, our strength is in what they get extra. Like, they get a mature person, and they get someone who knows themselves, and they get someone who can talk and speak and write, and with some maturity. And so that's your strength. You need to take the battle. I think it's probably in the art of war, where you take the battle where you have the advantage. You want to take that battle to the interview chair. You don't want to fight that battle with your resume. Your resume sucks. And even if it doesn't, they get like, I don't know, a stack of resumes for some of these entry-level jobs. And you are just, even if you're perfect, you're probably not gonna get a call. But I could just bypass that, because if the hiring manager, they're like, "Hey, look, Jen's really cool. She's really smart. She's been raising her kids, and she's, got these certifications, and we're friends, or I know her, I've met her." They don't have to be BFFs. I met so many people like at like WESIS, Women in Cybersecurity, and just chance meetings. Hey, because people want to help. People do want to help. No one's going to lower the bar, but they do want to help you. So they're going to help you maybe get the resume, and maybe it's going to be not that job, but it might be maybe a related job that hasn't been listed yet. Yeah, you're not quite qualified for this, but we got something else. Like, someone might be leaving, and so we maybe have an opening later. I'll call you like later. So I actually had 4 offers. One was a SOC that they found me through the security club, I think. One was a friend of kids went to preschool together. One was a WESIS meetup, and one was a guy in my Cisco class. And that's the job that I took. And it was actually a junior pen testing job where they would kind of train you and let you shadow people. But I don't think I would have found it if it wasn't for him, because he was like, "Hey, what are you going to do after Cisco class is over?" And I'm like, "I got the scholarship, and I think I'm going to." And so later we kept in touch, and he goes, "Hey, I think my company hires junior pen testers, like, for a training program." Like, wow, I'm surprised they're not like full and like overwhelmed. But I don't know. I mean, that was the only reason I heard about it, because I was Googling GPen, and I'm Googling pen tester junior jobs on Indeed. And, sometimes there's just no substitute just for hearing about the job than your network.
Yeah, because, one of the great things about that is you may find out about the job before it's posted too. So you're not having to deal with waiting till things get posted. And as you mentioned, the networking piece, that's huge. My former students and people I mentor, I'm always telling them to network, because you're able to bypass that HR firewall. I mean, I've applied for jobs that I was qualified without a doubt. I went to work for a bank through someone I met at an OWASP meeting. But prior to that, around the same time, I applied for another bank, had all the qualifications I need, and went the standard route of uploading resume and applying that way. Never heard. It took a year later to hear back from them. And part of that was because I went the other way. I had the certifications that they would be looking for, the experience, and just didn't, it took a year to finally get contacted. But this other place, someone told me at an OWASP meeting that they had openings for pen testers. I gave them the resume and I got an interview. So they have referral programs for a reason, because they know they can get people that they know of. It helps the person that's doing the resumes to sort through resumes, because you got these resumes and a lot of these things can be identical. How do you pick who to interview? You can't interview every single person. And so if you know someone on the inside, then that's definitely a big help.
Yeah, it's pretty big, and it's become a cliche to say network. I think people maybe don't take that in when we say it, but and they say, well, I don't know very many people, or I promise I don't sound like it, but I am a solid introvert, and to go to OWASP took a lot of courage to walk in the door knowing I'm probably going to be the only woman. Certainly older, my kids are older. I don't know. It took a lot of courage. I'd much rather be sitting on my couch, like watching Walking Dead or whatever, or just surfing and looking for Indeed jobs. But it's going to pay off more. It's going to pay off so much more to put that list together like I described. You shouldn't have to apply to that many jobs. You shouldn't have to. If you've got a good foundation and you interview halfway well, you should not. I mean, people are like, oh, I had to apply to thousands of jobs, or I didn't have to apply to that many. And I picked my favorite. I had my pick. And I'm glad I put that. I'm always glad I went to those meetings. If they meet or if they meet online, it's just really useful. I would just walk up to somebody who's by themselves and I would just strike up a conversation or eat lunch with them or whatever and say, what do you do? Where do you work? And do they hire junior people? And at OWASP, they said, hey, maybe you want to go to a consulting firm because you'll get exposed to a bunch of different types of clients and things like that. And they asked me about my background. And so they just gave me some good words on the street advice. I didn't have anybody else to ask. And people want to help people, especially if they meet them. So I clearly can't drive that home long enough. So yeah, that's how I did it. And I love it. It's constant learning. It's a great industry. I'm pretty happy to have found something that is worth my time and my talent and my energy. And it just values people who love to dive down rabbit holes. And that's me. So no, life is good.
That's great. And one of the things we need to touch on, because you kind of mentioned your challenges, being a stay-at-home mom. So going back, trying to get into the workforce, this can be a difficult industry for women to begin with, because just trying to you go to security conferences, you see how many women are there. It's improving, which is great to see. And you go to some of these security departments, how many women pen testers they have. It's not that women can't do it. It's women getting the jobs. So, the networking part you mentioned, are there any other tips that you have for like women that, are trying to break into the industry?
I guess I'm trying to address two groups of people. One I'm trying to address is women, because I know so many former engineers. I know so many people who used to be engineers, and they all do different things now because when they took the career break, they found that they could not get back into their career anymore. So I feel like I want to address two groups of people. One is if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I'm trying to tell my story and eventually, be good at my craft, that I'd be only talking about the tech. But until that time, I guess I'm talking about this group of people. And I wish the average person understood, because I don't think people understand the nearly insurmountable obstacles that lay before someone like that. When you're a technical woman trying to get back into a job market after a career break of any length, even if it was just 5 years, I don't think it should be that hard. I don't know. I just didn't know anybody who'd done it. And so I thought that was weird. And like, why? And that made it very psychologically kind of a mind screw, because I'm like, well, if it could be done, why don't more people do it? And I do feel like it's a symptom of a bigger issue, where we have this gender problem. We're all talking about this gender problem. Like, why are we still like 80-90% male? And I feel like a firewall sometimes. I feel like a firewall, like sometimes set on explicit deny, because you can't be in the industry for more than 5 minutes, and people want you to come talk to their young women choosing industries, because young women, they are voting with their feet. They are the most informed women, the young women that have ever walked the planet, about what they want to choose. And when I want to go tell them how great my industry is, and ask me in 5 years, because I don't think it should be this hard. I think there should be more of I met the gal from Department of Homeland Security at the last WESIS conference, and she's a mom and she's a veteran, and we struck up a conversation. I said, I think there should be a path. And we were talking about what that path might be, like returnships, like temporary returnships where they can kind of check you out and then they hire you on as a more advanced role. And I changed my mind. I don't want a path. I want a freeway. I think there needs to be a freeway. I think it needs to be as big of a freeway back into the industry for women like me just as big of a freeway as there is for new college grads. And I see companies that some of them have returnships, some of them have them, but not enough. They're really, really rare. They're like Bigfoot, and they're overwhelmed with applicants. And so I think if a company can afford 100 internships for new college grads, especially because we know that new college grads don't know anything, that maybe they could have 100 returnships for people like me or other talented people or career changers or whatever of any gender trying to get back in the industry. And so that's the other firewall comparison is like, I feel like a firewall on implicit deny, because it's like, by the time she's 18, your daughter has met particular groups of people. And half of the doctors that she's met have been female. And most of the dentists have been female, and all the teachers have been female, and the nurses have been female. And like it's every other industry has solved this. But the only people that she meets by the time she's 18, most of the people that she's met that are in engineering or are in cybersecurity are mostly male, or her dad and his slightly strange friends. So and then you ask her, like, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, that I think psychologically, even if you tell people, yeah, you can do whatever you want, or the world is your oyster, or whatever, her brain is tagged that with male, and so she's not meeting me because I'm not there. I'm at the community college taking an A+ class, thinking I'm gonna like repair computers because I can't get back in engineering. So I do think it's people like me. I feel like you can shove stuff in the one end. Like you can feed off the universities or whatever, and you can go ahead and feed that pipeline all you want. But there's a leaky pipeline, and it's there, and there should be a path back. And so I just think there should be a freeway, though. I'm not a unicorn. I used to think maybe I'm a unicorn. Maybe I'm a unicorn. Maybe I am. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. There's thousands of people like me. There's thousands of women like me. There's tens of thousands if you count the ones coming after me. So that's what I came here to say.
Yeah, that's great, and a great thing to share. Just like you said, all these other areas you see so many women in, but you get into technology, and this is not just security. This is other areas of IT. You just don't see as many women. So definitely, people need to, like you said, network, get plugged into some of these women's groups, because, some of them offer scholarships as well to like DEF CON and other conferences, some training opportunities and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And job hunting takes a lot of courage and resiliency, so I always tell people, look, it's the only path of failure. It's failure after failure until you succeed, and the success only comes at the very end. So there's not a lot of encouragement along the way, and so you just need a lot of support and to hear from. I love to listen to podcasts like this. I would listen to them all the time because it just showed me that other people that didn't come from the perfect little computer science 22-year-old background could do this. And look, I'm a pen tester. I jumped the line. I jumped a bunch of lines, and it's good. So I just think if you have a posse, you need to have a posse. You just need to have people tell you can do it. Sans just kept, you can do it, you can do it. My friends, my husband, everybody just kept, you can do it. They'd be lucky to get you that you can do it. And I just needed to hear that. My whole first year of my first job back, I had a sticky note on my laptop that said, "They're not better than you." And I just needed to see that. I'm not proud that I needed to see that. Maybe because I was the only on a bunch of different teams. I just didn't fit in. And I just like, I can do this, and one day I stood up and I stood up to get some water and my foot hit something and that sticky note was on the ground. I'm like, I guess I don't need the sticky note anymore. And that was a great day.
That's pretty cool. And, like you mentioned too, having supportive family and friends, you really need that. And that's great that you had your husband that was telling you that you were better than A+ or whatever. So it's good to have that you had someone to encourage you to aim higher, because, it's just, people really need that encouragement these days. And just the people like yourself sharing your stories, showing that they can accomplish these goals. One of the things I like to kind of compare it to is like in sports, say someone, like in whatever specific 440 relay or whatever is under a certain time, or a mile or a marathon, that limit has been there for so long, people don't think they can do it. But once you're able to achieve that goal, then other people around you see that they can too, and they can move forward and advance as well.
Yeah, that 4-minute mile, that's a great comparison. I think about that a lot. And I just kept saying, I'm going to do what they say can't be done, because all of my friends like, yeah, you let me know. And I have a friend who's an aerospace engineer. I met her because we were both volunteering at the school. And I said, she's one of the first people I was thinking about things. I said, do you ever try and get back on the show? Because she's so smart. And she said, yeah, I tried. I tried. They won't. I can't get arrested. And she's older than me. Her and her husband adopted a couple kids, and she wanted to be home with them until they got to elementary school. And she's like, just that break. She's like, yeah, I can't like get arrested. And I ran into her the other day. I said, hey, what are you doing? And she's so neat. And she's like, yeah, I started volunteering at the Wild Animal Park, and I work for a biologist. I'm volunteering, and I count worms. For this biologist. And so that was my thing. I would tell Cliff, I go, yeah, oh my gosh, if no one hires me, I'm going to have to go count worms. I'm going to have to go count worms at the Wild Animal Park. And, she said, hey, it's a pretty good gig. It's Wild Animal Park in San Diego. So, but yeah, I just think there should be options. And my least favorite word is waste. And I just feel like they're just wasting a lot of women exactly like me. And that's just not okay. So see what we can do. It's not my thing. I don't set up relaunch programs or anything. I just think people need to be aware.
Yeah, we all do our part in just bringing awareness and speaking on that. And one of the things I'd say too is it's good to see that things are improving. But one of the things I have to say, like yourself and then like my wife and other people that you've had to deal with, discrimination has been worse in the past, and people, there's a long ways to go. But even, a lot of times when you don't get a promotion or you don't get that good of a raise or certain things like that, it just, you're just kind of used to it, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, no, it's true. And everybody has those stories, and I think those are out there. But it's this baked in, it's like, it's just baked in genderism, kind of, because I don't want to be a secretary any more than you would want to be a secretary. You know what I mean? At when I'm done raising my kids, like, I don't want to sell real estate. Do you want to sell real estate? I don't want to. I don't want to work at the mall. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I can't work in my chosen industry, and we're all this, like we're the smartest ones, the former engineers, and yeah. So yeah, I'm glad to have this platform and get a chance to tell a story from a group of people that you simply don't hear from because we're not there. So.
Yeah. And this is, not only is this important to encourage those that are trying to get in the industry, it's an important message for people that are hiring managers or people that can help, women get into cybersecurity, as well as, non-binary people and LGBT, help them out too. So it's a good for those people to hear that as well too, because really that's the only way things are going to change is once people realize, hey, this is a problem. When you're a guy and things have been easy, you just don't realize the difficulty, and it should make them aware. There's such a skills gap in the industry, not enough people. So why wouldn't you take advantage of somewhat people that are just good? And sometimes women's work ethic can be better. One of my wife's managers, she works in digital forensics, and he constantly goes on about he'd rather have women working for him because just a lot of times that work ethic is, a lot of times better than some of the male counterparts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you're saying is true. If you can just see it, you can be it. So I think if people knew that was more of an option, that there would be more doors open. I think there would be more people. I think it's going to take time. I think we're caught in a negative feedback loop, and they've been talking about diversity. And the other thing is, I think it's really interesting because sometimes, and I appreciate this, people want to help women get into cybersecurity. It's a civic duty. They feel like they want to help, and that's a good reason. That's a good enough reason to help me, because you want to help women. But when you have a 90% male rate and you have an industry that is inadvertently alienating itself, apparently they must be, because there's no women in it, so they must be doing something. But they're the ones who have the need. Like, women are doing fine. They're going to medical school. They're a little short in the C-suite, I'll say. Mm-hmm. But really, I think overtaking men as far as degrees and as far as medical school and law school and things. But all is not well with cybersecurity. All is not well with cybersecurity. We have a skills gap that is growing, not narrowing. And I don't really think we have the luxury of not having a path that can be seen from outer space for every type of person, because I think young women see how you treat us. I don't mean that misogynistically. I think they just see, well, there's no older women in it. So like, why would, obviously that's not, I mean, I just think their brain does that. I think their brain goes, why don't you be a teacher? Why don't you be a dentist? And why don't you choose, because the ones that you want are choosing medical school, dental school, they're becoming attorneys. And that's who you want to pull to your industry. And I think that people like me is just one of the ways that they would see this as a viable career option, even though I'm telling them, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I can't literally, most of the time I'm like, I can't believe I'm being paid. This is just so neat to learn about these web attacks and these different, even if it's a false positive, I get to learn about it and watch something from Black Hat and learn about it. And I'm paid to learn that stuff. And it's just the best.
Yeah, and it's good for people to have examples like yourself and sharing your story about how you got started, kind of provide some hope for them, let them see themselves in that type of role.
Yeah, no, it's a huge, just those little steps. And I didn't have it all planned out. Not at all. I really didn't. And I ran into another former engineer friend. I go, you got to do this thing. This is really cool. She goes, well, it looks like you had it all planned out. No, it really was like that. If I hadn't been at that bar, if I hadn't taken that class, if I'd taken the wireless class or whatever. So thanks so much for letting me tell my story. This has been really great.
Well, thanks for sharing your story. I mean, there's a lot of things that I didn't really know about your story. So it was great to hear it. And thanks for sharing your advice, because I'm sure people are going to get some helpful information off this. And we'll be sharing your social media. So if people want to follow you, then if they need further inspiration, they can follow you. So
absolutely. And if I always tell people, if you don't have a posse, I'm your posse. Contact me. I'm your posse now. And I'll tell you, you can do it, because you might need to be told that a couple times.
Yeah. Jen can be your posse starter kit.
That's right. The technical interviews, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But my advice on the technical interviews, because I do well on them, is to do as many as you can. Do as many as you can, and do them at places you don't want to work, so that you can get over your nerves. Because the first time I had all these certifications, and I was so smart about so many things. And then I was so nervous that I got on my first call with a technical recruiter, and she asked me what ran on port 80, and my brain left my body. And I was like, what is a computer? I was just so nervous, and I recovered in time, but I got over those nerves at jobs that I didn't want, so that I could be good in the interviews for the jobs that were my dream jobs. And they all kind of ask the same things. I don't know if I have any advice about Pentester questions, but it's foundations. It's the foundation: asymmetrical, symmetrical cryptography, three-way handshake, cross-site scripting, SQL injection. And then after that, it becomes cybersecurity trivia nights. It's whatever is their pet question. And instead of winning a bottle of wine, you win a job. So it's sort of like, one time they asked me a question, I forget what it was, but it was really interesting. And I just said, I don't know, but I'm going to look it up as soon as I get home, because I thought it was just an interesting question, and everybody laughed, and I still got a job offer. I mean, you don't have to know everything. But you should go in being pretty prepared, and do some practice interviews with real companies that you don't want to work at because they're too far from home, or they want you to work shift work and you don't want to, or whatever, and then you get to those. I went to an interview one time where I had a job offer already that I accepted, and I still went to the interview the next day, and it was 9 men in a room for an hour where they asked me technical questions, and it was great practice. It was great. I still pull from that interview experience to people that are looking to get in, or just for practice. And I already had an offer. I was too late to cancel, and my husband's like, go ahead anyway, just see how it goes. And it was an hour. That was a lot, but it's funny, those group interviews, all of those that have been really bad are not jobs that I ever took. I've said no to more things than I've said yes to. That should encourage people with my blank resume. So that should be encouraging.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for joining me and sharing your story.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for the opportunity. This has been really great.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Phillip Wylie. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.